Apple MacBook Air 15-inch review, exactly what was asked for. There is no reason that Apple needed to wait this long, but it is releasing this model now, following many months that were slow for the company, and much slower for the industry at large. Apple, over the last 2 quarters, reported the sharpest year-over-year percentage decline in Mac revenue that we've seen in half a decade. If there were ever a time that laptop companies needed to inject the market with some pizzazz, it's today, right now. In the Windows space, PC makers are making a flashy pivot to services. Artificial intelligence is being shoved down consumers' throats. New models are shipping with a laundry list of webcam beautification features and tools that keep your eyes in one place. Dell made an invisible touchpad. Lenovo's doing funky things with e-ink and dual screens. HP hardwired a customer service button to its flagship product, rebranding itself from a PC company to a solution provider. Asus says, well, it's doing various things over there. MSI is trying to make ChatGPT, but Apple is not chasing generative AI or e-ink or dual screens. It's releasing a product that people have been asking for at a price that they are very likely to pay, a good, functional product that people have been shouting, for years, that they want, a 15-inch MacBook Air. And yes, in case you were on the edge of your seat, it is good. This MacBook Air 15 is the opposite. The chip is a known quantity, it's the M2, the same one that lives in the 13-inch MacBook Air and the 13-inch MacBook Pro. In fact, the model I have 8-core CPU, 10-core GPU, 16GB memory, 512GB storage, $1,699 is basically the same configuration we received for our review of the 13-inch model, with twice the memory, thrown into a bigger chassis. Prior to the Air 15, if you wanted a MacBook with an appreciably larger display, you'd have to pay a $1,000 premium and get a thicker, much heavier computer. But if you now spec the 13-inch and 15-inch devices identically, the larger one commands around a $100 premium. The chip is not different. The chassis is different. Well, is it? Using this device on a day-to-day basis does not feel particularly different from using the 13-inch Air. The keyboard and touchpad and trusty webcam nudge are all the same. The biggest difference to report, and this will come as no surprise, is the screen. The 15.3-inch panel is large, especially with its slightly taller than 16:10 aspect ratio. It affords, frankly, much more space than I would ever know how to take full advantage of. I can comfortably use 2 windows side by side. On the 13-inch Air, I might have to zoom out a notch or two. Big screen devotees, you'll be thrilled. The second big difference is the weight. The 13-inch Air is 2.7 pounds, and the 15-inch Air is 3.3 pounds. There is just over half a pound of difference, and it is noticeable. While the 15-inch Air is a world lighter than its larger 16-inch M2 Pro cousins, it is significantly chunkier than the 13-inch Air. Look, you are all going to make fun of me for this, and I deserve it, but the Air is an ultra-portable machine, and that has been its shtick since it launched. The 15-inch Air is not an ultra-portable machine in the same way. Just for some context, it is only 1/10 of a pound away from the weight of the Zephyrus G14 gaming laptop. It is thinner than other Windows laptops in the size class, but there is quite a bit packed into that chassis, and it's still a big computer overall. Carrying it around in a tote bag was not my favorite thing. But the third big difference is the speakers. The Air 13 speakers are good. The Air 15s are stupendous. Bass came through in a way it doesn't on pretty much any other computer. I was so stunned when I first turned on a bass-heavy song that I thought it must have been coming from a Bluetooth speaker somewhere else. Largely, however, the size of the chassis does not transform the experience of using the Air. This is not an XPS 13/XPS 15 situation where two models have experiences, use cases, and target demographics that are clearly different. This is a larger Air, with the same keyboard as before, the same, albeit, even larger, excellent trackpad, and a bigger screen. In turn, my complaints about this Air are largely my complaints about the smaller Air. I wish it were upgradable, I wish there were more ports, and I wish I could take or leave the notch. And my praise is the same. It is, for its category, portable. It is well built and sturdy. The screen is wonderful. It seems like Apple has figured out exactly what the MacBook Air needs to be. This is what a MacBook Air is. The MacBook Air 15 sits solidly between the MacBook Air 13 and the MacBook Pro 13 in most of the synthetic benchmark tests I ran. The three devices are in the same ballpark on the single-core Cinebench test. The 15-inch Air is much closer to the 13-inch Pro on the shadow of the Tomb Raider gaming benchmark than it is to the 13-inch Air. Since all of these devices have the same processor, any difference in performance likely comes down to cooling. Like the smaller version, the MacBook Air 15 does not have a fan. What it does have is a wee bit more room for its heat pipes to do their thing. Overall, it seems that the 15-incher's Big Berth does not have quite as large of an impact on the M2's performance as the MacBook Pro 13's fan, but it gets a decent part of the way there. The caveat: the Air still gets hot. It was hotter in the area right above the function row than I wanted to touch during pretty much all of my benchmark testing. The keyboard, while usable, was toasty. I did not see any of this heat when I was just using the Air to mess around in Chrome, which was most of the time. But if you're one of those people buying this thinking you will use it to export video every so often, take that to note. In more human terms, I do not really notice a difference in my day-to-day work performance between the MacBook Air 15 and any other MacBook released in recent years. The M1 chip was already well above the demands of my workload, and the M2 chip is a step yet beyond. I'm using an M1 MacBook Pro 13 as my daily driver for my journalist workload these days, and let me tell you, it's all the same. That said, this is not a review where I can get away with just recommending that you buy last year's model at a discount because there is no last year's model. Fair enough. I hope you like this video. Please share and subscribe.